Welcome, everyone. I was going to introduce myself, but I'm fairly confident you guys all know that I'm Diana West. Thank you for coming. Last spring, I was approached by Margot Lemieux to come and do a performance piece on Woody Guthrie and the Great Recession and the Great Depression. However, Margot is on sabbatical now, so she just kind of threw me under the bus and was like, go ahead and do this project. And I was like, all right, whatever. But I was super pumped because Woody Guthrie is awesome. Clearly, from his artwork, you can tell. And I'm a history major, so anything historical is also awesome. So I was all about this. And so after I first met with Margot, I went home and I was all like, guys, to my friends, I'm doing a project on Woody Guthrie. And they're all like, I have no idea who that is. And I was like, this land is your land, you know? And they're like, no, I still don't know who that is. And when Solange shows up, she actually didn't know who Woody Guthrie was, so that was really exciting. And I began my journey to get to know Woody, and this presentation is the product of that journey. And so if you have had the chance to visit the gallery over the past month, you can tell how awesome he was in his 55 short years. During his lifetime, he penned over 3,000 songs, wrote countless essays, and created over 500 pieces of artwork. And he also published an autobiography and inspired many artists to continue with his work to this day. And he wasn't fancy, he wasn't trying to impress anyone, he just wanted to tell things how they were. And so the best way he knew how to do that was to put that into song. So Woody was born in Okemah, Oklahoma on July 14th, 1912. And growing up, he didn't have exactly the best home life. His mother's erratic behavior, which was later contributed to Huntington's disease, led to multiple terrible accidents, including the death of his older sister. And his father's physical fighting to make it in the land speculating business eventually led to Guthrie's living in desolate shacks by the time Guthrie was a teenager. Eventually, he ended up living with the family of a childhood friend, which was an experience in itself, as that family had 11 children in it. And he would talk about how they would all share a few beds, sleeping at both ends to make everyone fit. And so, before his mother ended up being hospitalized with Huntington's, she had taught him many old country ballads. And so he grew up in this home filled with music, and at a very young age he started making up his own songs. Just about everything he saw and everything that was happening around him. And so when he was older, he finally realized that he could make money from this enterprise. And by the time when he was in his late teens, he set out on the road, and he just had taught himself how to paint and draw. And so he would make money by going around and painting signs. And he learned how to play the harmonica, and so he made up a few songs. But then he saw a man playing the guitar. And that was really what caught his eyes. And so naturally he learned how to play the guitar, and he would put out a hat, and he would just start playing everywhere he went, just to make dollars. And he really started speaking to the people because he was singing songs about their lives and not just about anything. And so eventually his guitar playing led him to start a band, the Corncob Trio, which also led him to meet his first wife, Mary Jennings. And he set up Mary and his few kids in Texas, but he decided that he couldn't stay in one place. So he started roaming the roads of the U.S. And he'd just throw a couple of shirts on his back so he didn't know when he was going to be home. And as he wandered, he wrote more songs, poems, songs he experienced. And it was the midst of the Great Depression. And Guthrie was living in the Dust Bowl. So he had plenty of material to write about. And as Bonnie Christensen wrote in her biography of Woody, most of Woody's songs reflect the struggles and celebrate the spirit of the American people from the years of the Great Depression to today. And so as he headed west with the victims of the Dust Bowl, Woody began to understand what it meant to lose everything he had. And one song he wrote about this experience was, I Ain't Got No Home in This World Anymore. Now I'm going to attempt to play you this song on my guitar. However, I learned to play the guitar like a month ago, so it's not the greatest thing that ever happened. Hello, latecomers. You're just in time for my first song. Too silly the pins. That's okay. Have a seat. You're up soon.
Oh God.
Okay, so this is I Ain't Got No Home in This World Anymore. I ain't got no home, I'm just rambling round. I'm just a wandering worker, I roam from town to town. The police make it hard wherever I may go, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. My brothers and my sisters are sharing on this road, a hot and dusty road that a million feet done trod. Rich man took my home and drove me from my door, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Was a farming on a share, and always I was poor. My crops I laid in to the banker's store. My wife took down and died upon the cabin floor, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Now as I look around, it's mighty plain to see the world is such a great and funny place to be. The gambling man is rich and the working man is poor, and I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Now my done. So as I mentioned before, Woody was creating music in what is definitely one of America's darkest times, which is the Great Depression. And in the 1920s, life was good in America. Europe was in tatters after World War I, so America had taken the stage as a world leader. But having had an isolationist policy previous to World War I, America wasn't too sure how to take up where Great Britain had originally left off. Prior to World War I, Great Britain had acted like a global stabilizer. However, World War I had sent Britain into the Depression as early as June of 1921, leaving the booming United States to take over. And Britain had had a system of checks and balances in place to ensure that the supply didn't overmeet the demand. But the U.S. didn't bother to follow that lead. Because of World War I, industrial output in the United States rose 70% throughout the 1920s. Unemployment was virtually unknown at this time. America soon became the world's first consumer society, a society whose central economic activity was the production of what could be termed luxuries for the masses. Americans had this growing need for the latest gadgets, from cars to vacuums to having a bigger and better house. And this need led to buying things on credit, putting the consumer society into a huge hole of debt. And as a new world leader, investing in America began to take shape. Now Americans were investing their money all over the world. And investing seemed the surefire way to make more money. But the problem with the investments was that people weren't actually using their own money. They were borrowing the money to invest in the stock market, and shares, so the shares just kept rising, not because the company was doing well that they were buying it, because people just kept buying the shares. By 1929, it was obvious that trouble was on its way. America was overproducing, not just in the factories, but also on the farms. This caused a slowing down of industrial growth, and more people were defaulting on their loans, and so share prices started to fall. As the share prices in the stock market fell, investors began selling in earnest. The more the investors sold, the steeper the prices fell. By Black Tuesday, on October 29th, over 16 million shares have been sold. The stock market had crashed, the Great Depression had begun. And everyone thought that the aftermath of the Great Crash would be temporary. America had seen depressions before throughout the 19th century, and there is the economist's theory that depressions are natural occurrences that happen every few years. But 12 years can hardly be called temporary. With so many people's money wrapped up in bad investments, businesses started laying people off. And by 1932, 25% of the working population was unemployed. Without a steady income, people couldn't pay off their debts accrued during the 1920s, which led many to not only be unemployed, but also homeless. And as America was the leading